All right, gang. It's this is no special guest, but you're all pretty special. So I'm very happy with that. Tonight we're going to explore Aikido as a developmental path. So I guess the first question is, do you consider it to be a developmental path of self? You don't have to. So there's Sean nodding his head. There's at least one person who thinks that's the case. That's good. Joe does. Good. So does Errol. Yeah, Molly's with it.
I think the first question is, what is a developmental path? Because I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay. What would you take it to mean?
A process whereby you start at one point, keep adding and working with what comes up until you get to another point.
Yeah, I think that's true. I would say, though, that's fairly all-encompassing. So if you were practicing it just from a martial perspective, you are starting from one place, and one would like to think that if you do it for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, you probably end up at a different place in terms of your competency.
Right. And in terms of what the experience is, I guess.
Yeah. So I think the question, and I suspect it does change you as a person too. John, I'm going to throw that one at you. So you've practiced for a mighty long time. Think of yourself as a young man. Think of yourself as you are now. Has Aikido changed the path you would have taken?
Yes, most definitely. Once it grabbed hold of me, I couldn't let go, and it's been part of my life, a big part of my life, for over 50 years.
So would you say that it shaped your character as well as being a passion for you?
Well, as you know, I've become a very lovable Geordie.
Well, that's true. You've never threatened to hit us once with a bottle of...
I haven't, no.
So
and after having many sessions with you, I've become much more placid and loving.
I'd love to believe that. So what I will expand on what I mean. I think it helps. It can help. It doesn't have to. It depends what you're seeking, doesn't it? If you're seeking a martial path, that does one thing. But I think it can help you become a more complete person, a more rounded individual, help you to fulfill the potential that you have as a human being, and can lead to a much more positive life. So that's kind of what I mean by developing self. I think it pushes you down this path where life can become richer and richer. Is that a controversial thing to say, or are people comfortable with that?
Very controversial, Quentin.
Excellent, Hugh. And I expect a rebuttal from you.
So I would, just to throw something in from left field, I mean, we talk about the journey and the path.
Yeah.
So when most people start out on a journey, they have a destination in mind.
Yeah.
So I think one of the interesting things to maybe ask folks is, do they have a destination in mind in their Aikido?
It's funny you should say that, because that's a question I very often ask my students.
Yeah.
And very often they're not very clear about what their destination may be. And very often it's changed over the years.
And I think that's what makes it very interesting, because, you know, a lot of this sort of philosophy is about the way, the path, rather than the destination. We talk much more about the way and the path than we ever do about destination.
I think that's probably true. I just think it's helpful if you've got some idea of what the destination could be, because then you can kind of filter out the stuff that isn't helping you get to where you want to be. You never arrive anyway, but at least you're heading in the right direction more often than not.
Okay, anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in,
well,
stir it up.
I appreciated that.
I think I agree with you completely, Quentin, but I'm agreeing with what you mean, not with what you said.
Okay.
What you said is it helps you fulfill your potential. If you're a mediocre mass murderer, will Aikido help you become a really excellent mass murderer? I think what you mean is Aikido will teach you to be kind and strong and behave nicely towards other people. And I agree with that if you do it for that. But
Okay, yes, I can see that the word potential might be a little broad, because we all have the potential and capacity to be awful or be wonderful. So I think it pushes us in a good direction. I should have added that. In the line that you just said, towards peace and happiness and being generous and kind and giving and playing a part in a positive society.
I agree completely. You should have seen me 30 years ago. I was such an asshole.
Well, I've known you for about 20. You weren't too bad.
No, but I was starting to think by that.
Okay, so if we're agreed that it at least has the potential to be an art that helps you move in a positive direction in life, how does it do it?
It reflects.
Oh, well, if Paul, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry. I butt in too often.
Well, I was going to say that like O-sensei is actually pretty clear on this point. He says that, you know, Aikido helps develop people in 5 different ways, right? Mary Heine Sensei has taught this a number of times, right? Aikido is Chi-iku, Tai-iku, Ki-iku, Toku-iku, and Joshiki, right? These are the 5 areas of iku means like to cultivate or to grow, or to develop, or like to be taught sometimes, right? So Chi-iku is the cultivation of wisdom. Tai-iku is the cultivation of the body. Ki-iku is cultivation of ki. Toku-iku is the cultivation of virtue, and Joshiki is roughly like common sense, right?
I think they're all good directions to push in.
Yeah.
The question is, how does it achieve it? So yes, there are things it helps to develop, but what is it about Aikido that helps us that could help us develop in those areas? Joe.
Oh, keep going, Sean. I'll do it later.
For me, because my way of relating to the world, my first way is kinesthetically. I have to touch it. I want to feel it. I get the whole vibration of it. That's how I process my world initially, is through my feeling body. And just Hanmi alone, for me, having a balanced stance where I'm neither defensive or offensive, but I am holding center, has completely expanded my way in the world of being with people, and particularly being able to love the unlovable.
Okay, well, we'll expand on that a bit, because I mean, okay, so what is it about Hamni that helps you not only on the mat, but off the mat?
A really powerful event in my life. I had been on the mat 8 days. So Tuesday and Thursday for 4 weeks with Frank Duran. And in an evening, I was having a particularly difficult conversation with my mother over the fact that I was leaving my marriage. And for the first time, I found myself, I had the phone in my ear, and I was simply breathing, and I was calm, and I was listening. I didn't deflect, I didn't get in the way, I didn't do anything, I just let her completely say whatever it was she had to say. And then I was able to say to her, thank you, and give a response. Well, before my response came, I looked down and I'm standing in Hanmi. And that was a prime mover to get me back on the mat, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, the 500th. That manifestation through my body allowed this openness to occur.
So you were very sensitive, stroke lucky to have such a powerful experience so early on in your journey that allowed you to see how what you'd practiced on the mat, this sort of centered, stable posture, made a difference in how you received information in when it attacked verbally off it.
Yeah, totally. In 8 hours, okay, in 8 hours of being on the mat, this presented itself. You know, I feel hugely fortunate because it, you know, as life goes on, I think I was probably in my mid 30s at that point. Well, here I am in my, you know, I'm in my 70s, and it's like, it has been a field for this whole 36 years.
Right. So if I ask the question of people here about, okay, so if I said that centering is a key part of our study, any controversy in that? We're happy with that. Okay, so those of you who, well, it doesn't have to have been practiced a long time, but would you not say that when you practice for a long time, you kind of see things more clearly and you have more time to do what needs to be done than you did when you first stepped on the mat?
Can I give a couple of examples briefly?
Please do.
40 years ago in my Shodan test, Frank Duran said, Paul, you're too gentle at the front end of the technique, so you have to be harsh at the end to make it work. I've been working on that comment for 40 years. 2 days ago, I almost got killed by a car. I was riding my bike and it ran straight into me. And it was turning, just turned right into me. And so I didn't think, I didn't feel, just perfectly calmly, I turned with it, no problem.
Well, that's and you probably couldn't have done that 40 years ago.
No, but that's the working out of Frank Duran's comment after 40 years.
Absolutely amazing. Wonderful.
I think so.
And again, another wonderful translation of what you practiced on the mat gave you a sort of centered, calm way of being off the mat that allowed you to deal with that situation in the way you just described.
Exactly. It wasn't even a surprise. I didn't think anything of it. I just responded and went along.
Amazing. What do others feel? Is that not your experience too, Andrew?
Well, I was going to say, I started as a teenager back in the 60s. When I started, my instructor was an orange belt. So there was not a great deal of experience on the deeper side of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that grew and developed over the years. So when we started it as something to do, and we were more interested in learning the techniques and all the physical side of it.
Sure.
But all the other things came on much later, I think.
So what drew you into how did it happen that it stopped being just an experience of martial technique? How did you get drawn into a deeper side of it, if you might say?
Well, as you begin to understand what the techniques are doing and how your body reacts to the various movements, you then start to understand what is, the things that are going on rather than just a physical sort of attempt at something.
Okay. Anyone else got any thoughts? No? Okay.
Yes, yes, I have. Sorry, I was thinking some activities in architecture, like an architect could be hired to demolish an old house and rebuild a new house from the scratch, for refurbishing, for I don't know if that's the same word in English, but revitalizing, when we change the use of the building to another thing. So I think we can develop a great menu of different tools for everything we need to change in life, even from building something from the scratch, and even for something that we just need to change, to remodel it, to give a new meaning. And I think it's I don't know where I'm getting with this yet, but it's just coming with me, just helping me in different situations with different tools, and I think it's something that.
So you've lived a very, very vigorous online Aikido life this last year and a bit. How's that changed your vision of Aikido, and how's it helped you get through this pandemic?
Well, I think in every possible things in my relationship with my father, which is kind of complicated. He's very controlled. We are living apart right now for the first time in our lives, and just keeping this space for him not to trying to control my life, that in my own house right now. How people get closer to me or not right now. I'm living in a country that we barely don't have any rules here. We have, okay, keep safe distance, but people just, there is no regulations on the street. So just like meeting old friends, new friends, my Aikido have changed abruptly. 2 weeks ago, I told you very quickly, I have some Aikido friends over in my house, and it was the first time that we practiced together. And I have never tried that before. Never. Just effortless, very gentle, everybody just really wanting to learn with each other, and nobody, they were higher ranks than me. One of them used to be one of the teachers in our dojo. And we were very respectfully, just playing, you know, we were talking, okay, let me try this thing. And I have never tried that thing before. If somebody grabbed me on my wrist, I completely tense. I had fun, of course, but it is changing. It is changing the way that I put things. I still struggle with some situations, but at least I just recognize when I got tense and when I go in a more reactive response.
Okay.
But at least I'm aware. I don't know.
So different is okay, but is different better? And if so, why? Why is it better now?
Joy, completely joy. And that experience it was about 2 weeks ago, and it's still here with me in my body. When I talk about that, I remember all of the feelings, all of the sensing, and I remember the previous Aikido, but I smile sometimes, but with this one, it's just kind of ecstasy.
Yeah, we can see it on your face. That's great. Yeah. Lovely. Okay, so centering helps us maybe develop our capacity to deal with life more generally. What else do we do on the mat that might help, in your opinions? Linda.
Good morning or evening. Morning here. For me, a huge part of it has been learning to feel. Like I was real good at being in my head and denying, I got like stuff that hurts, just ignore it. So actually working on learning to feel, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. It's kind of like if you're doing a wine tasting course or something and you're really developing your sense of taste. Like what's the difference between skunky and oak leaves or whatever the heck wine people look for? We're actually feeling like, where's the pressure? Where's the resistance? Where's a little bit of a twist? Where's their softness? And it's, we get so many distinctions and not a mental understanding of them, but a real physical sense of them. So through Aikido, I've learned to feel what's happening in my own body, my own emotions, what's what I can feel when I get tense, instead of just, I have things to do today,
Okay, you just said something very important there. So we were talking about feeling, and everything you were talking about seemed to be about bodily feel, and then suddenly we flipped to emotions. So
yeah, it's all well, that's, you feel it in your body. That's all emotions are, feelings. Good. They're feelings.
Yeah.
And I've through all of that, I've also learned to become a lot more empathetic toward others.
Right. Okay.
And like one of the things, kind of like what Molly said, really early in my practice, might have been a month or two in, I was, I went to meetings at work and did my stuff, and here's the report you asked for, and here's why this is important, and bam. but I was sitting in a meeting room and someone else walked in and there was something in her posture that just was like subtle, but it was like, ah, and I just turned to her and I'm like, are you okay? And I, I, I wouldn't have acknowledged that. That was like something you just don't deal with, you know? And I just asked, are you okay? And she was like, you know, something like, no, my dog just died, or, you know, something, but I was startled that I noticed it. Like I asked that before I even thought about it. And I'm like, whoa, did I just say that? You know, where'd that come from? I kind of had to go back, like, why did I say that? What happened? But it was from that learning to feel, to be aware of feeling and what's happening with other people, physically and emotionally, myself and other people.
Okay, that's brilliant. So you've become a lot more sensitive. How's that helped you?
Oh, well, it certainly helped me in relationships. It's hard to sort out where it's helped me separate from the other parts of Aikido, like learning patience and acceptance, learning to accept where people are. You know, I came from a background where like somebody knows the right way and they tell you, you know, parents and teachers, that kind of thing. And, you know, what I watched my teacher do is help people become who they are, not who he's there to tell them how to be, you know. So learning from that example, so combining it with all that. You were asking earlier, you know, what is has your life path changed through Aikido? I completely changed. I gave up my old career, became a fitness coach, personal trainer, and am totally working with encouraging other people, helping bodily, embodied, feeling, empathetic kind of stuff as a thing I do in life,
Well,
and taking that into writing and teaching.
okay, it's a silly question to ask, but I'm going to ask it because it's for the recording. So has that made your life better or worse?
Oh, better, so much better. Yeah,
Because?
yeah. I was very much in a sort of a prescribed mercenary way of living. You know, you have to go to college and get a job and work your way up in your career, even if you're not really happy and your body hurts every day and you're shut down. And through Aikido, I've kind of found my own path, which wasn't a thing that was going to happen otherwise, and found a community, y'all, and a whole lot of other people all over the world. I see Molly nodding like mad, Joanna. um, but yeah, it's really opened up a whole new set of options for me, and they are optional, not just the determined way I was supposed to live.
Okay, so you've told us what it did for you.
Yep.
But I'm going to come back to the how. How did it do that for you?
How did it? Well, back to the teaching feeling.
Okay, well,
like teaching sensitivity, and part of that was Aikido. Part of our Aikido practice is mindfulness and meditation.
right.
And Aikido is in itself that, but also
Yeah.
we've done like, you know, short sittings. We don't do massive retreats or anything, but I remember one day doing like, you know, just a 15-minute sitting after work. And I'd had a hell of a day at the job I no longer do. And I was sitting and meditating, and I actually felt what was going on with me. And it wasn't good. And I decided right there, this isn't where I need to be. This is stupid. Why am I doing this to myself? And now I no longer do that work. I didn't walk in and quit the next day, but that's where that was like, hey, I need to do another thing. But it was through that, how it did that was teaching me to be aware of what was going on in my own body and my own emotions, my own energy,
Sure.
and how to feel for what would be better.
Yeah.
You know, where am I pushing against resistance, and where could I just, oh, this side, this works better.
Yeah. That's really nice. So, I mean, I think you've made about so many good points in that. But what, as an observing it, one of the things is it's your path, and it's your path to develop and move forward on the path that you want to move forward on, not anybody else's. you might share it with your teacher and the fellow students to a good degree, but it is your path. And secondly, the teacher plays a big part in opening doors for you, because if your teacher hadn't regularly maybe looked at meditation and sensitivity, you wouldn't have observed it quite as soon as you did and known this was a path that you could follow. So
yeah, he has a huge focus on that, on all of that. And it's also one of his teachers, Robert Nadeau. I know I've seen other people in those classes, but you know, his teaching, I knew of him and his teaching before I started training in Aikido. And that's why I chose the dojo that I'm at.
okay.
Like I went dojo hopping and, you know, to see where to train. And the first one I walked into had a sign on the bulletin board that said, Robert Nadeau is coming for a seminar. And I'm like, oh my God, they know that guy. And that was the only dojo I looked at. And I definitely found myself in the right place.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got on the how, we've got, it helps us to center, and it can be, well, I think it should promote sensitivity and feeling. Sometimes I wonder, but I think it's part and parcel myself. What else is in there in Aikido that helps us on the how?
Throw something in here. Because it's a partner practice, right, and you have multiple partners with shapes, sizes, intent, all of that kind of stuff, it really transfers out off the mat to the fact that all these other people out there have different shapes, different sizes, different intentions, all that kind of stuff. And it gave me a still point in which to observe what was going on. So in my architectural field, and I worked mostly with families, with couples who were remodeling. And oftentimes when a couple is remodeling, it's like they're really wanting to remodel their marriage or, you know, whatever. And I could just see their energy. I could see where their conflicts were. I mean, you know, you get into talking about simple things like color. You know, what colors do you want? And I was able to, in one particular case, when a couple said to me, we like to cook together, I was able to be still enough to see that together did not mean underfoot. And that the design that I had to bring forward would allow them to be in the same space, but they could access the stove from a different way. They could access the sink from a different way. They had areas in which to do preparation it was in the same kitchen, but it was not underfoot. And I really feel like I saved their marriage.
Wonderful.
I mean, you know, that may sound weird, but I set it up in such a way that they could do this thing fluidly and not be in conflict.
Mm.
And so,
and that's from the fact that you practiced with all shapes and sizes and had to take whatever was in front of you.
Yeah, and listening and observing. So, you know, someone's coming to attack me, I'm feeling them way before that comes.
Right.
So there was an awareness of really observing the whole, not being like a deer in headlights, like focusing on one thing, but actually having an open arena to let all the information come in so I could respond in a way that was safe and, you know, helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So when you talk, Molly, you often talk about energy and ki and spirit and words like that, which some people in the Aikido world would struggle with. So
well, I didn't get that from my dojo. I mean,
I was just going to say that I don't mind that you use them. It's absolutely fine by me. I'm just saying that some people struggle with those words. Yeah. For me, perhaps just a more neutral word is awareness. Now you can understand why we develop more awareness. For you, you'd probably explain it by feeling energy, etc. Would there be a general acceptance that Aikido makes you more aware as a human being? Is that one thing that Aikido does for us?
It can.
It can if you want it to.
It can.
And it probably should if you keep practicing at it.
Yeah.
What do others feel? Is awareness something that comes naturally out of Aikido just through the practice of the technique?
Awareness of what is the question? If you're doing techniques, you can get better and better at feeling less and less. You can use the same technique for almost everything and make it work. I don't think that would be, I wouldn't choose that path, but I could see someone could.
I would say awareness is, it shouldn't be limited. It should be, awareness means that you're, put you in any situation and you're taking on board more information.
That's what you and I mean, but that's not necessarily what other people mean.
And then I don't think that's great awareness. It's awareness, but it's poor awareness. Good awareness is when put you in any situation, you're able to maximize the information and make the best decisions based on everything that you've picked up.
I work a lot with trauma survivors, and for them, many times surviving means feeling less and less, numbing themselves. So that's
absolutely. So their awareness is always to but it's kind of a focused awareness where everything is filtered through this channel of negativity from their previous experience. And what we do is we open up as we practice over time, don't we?
We do. But all I'm saying is awareness can function in many different ways.
Oh, and I agree with that. But my point is that in Aikido, I would say it encourages us to open up rather than narrow down. Does it not?
Our Aikido, yes, but I'm sure there's others.
Anyone else got a view on that? Do we think that Aikido generally does, or that there are plenty of Aikidos that awareness plays no part whatsoever? Because I can't think of any Aikido that wouldn't improve your awareness a bit.
Yeah, I would think you have to have awareness of the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
And it must develop awareness.
I would have said so. So John, you're being raised in the Northeast like you are, and would you say it's developed your awareness off the mat of a situation that maybe you shouldn't be in?
Where I live, I'm always aware, mate. Just walking down the street.
And that's important to be so, isn't it?
Yes, what always fascinates me is a lot of young people don't seem to have any awareness when
Do carry on.
They're just totally engrossed in their phone, and they have no idea what's going on around them.
Right. I mean, one of the things about Aikido is you kind of got to look up and see what's going on. Otherwise, you're going to get steamrolled, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of hardwired into the practice that you have to have an awareness of what your partner is doing to come up with the response and the timing to deal with it effectively. Whether it translates off the mat's another matter. I think it generally should. What about you, Rick? What do you think? It's lovely to have you with us, by the way. Do you want to offer a comment on that?
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I just got in, so I was kind of listening to see where you guys were. And if it's the question of awareness and whether you automatically receive it in your training, I think that it initially starts about where you are, period, in life. There's when you first start off Aikido, because to some people, it is so different. They're just trying to grasp a hold of what this is different, that's different, because what we're taught in life, most of the time through action, through our environment, is meeting people with anger for anger, or, you're thinking in terms of being attacked, and, your mind is focused one way and you don't see options. And with Aikido, as you grow in your Aikido, you begin to see that there are other options. And then that right there transfers into your life, where you become more aware in your life. So I think the awareness comes as your training grows and you begin to understand the concept of having to be at a certain level of consciousness in order to receive energy and redirect that energy.
Sure. So I mean,
Uh,
in many ways, you've just summarized exactly what this session is about. So the question was that I opened up with was, does Aikido help develop self? And we had a discussion about what that might mean. And I think you very usefully pointed out that everybody kind of arrives on the mat at a different place in their life. Some
right.
have had a really bad hand dealt to them and life has been really difficult, and others have had a smoother path. The question is, does it take them beyond where they are? And I think very clearly you're illustrating that it does. It does open up options.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways it does that is it enhances awareness. So we were starting to analyze, well, how does Aikido do this? If it develops self, and I think generally there's support for that, whatever developing self might mean, how does it do that? We had centering, and we had a development of awareness and a development of sensitivity, which I think is tied in with awareness, actually.
Yeah. I think that Patrick was raising his hand. I wanted to hear what he was about to say.
I always want to hear what Patrick has to say.
No, nobody else does. Thank you, Rick. I had last month, I came very close to being killed too. I was driving on the freeway and there was a lot of trucks, and I was doing the speed limit, and two things happened. Like a spidey sense kicked off, and something didn't feel right. I immediately put my awareness out there and started, what's going on here? About maybe 10 seconds after that, I saw a car coming really fast up behind me. It pulled over it went into the lane next to me, went in, and I immediately felt I better start braking. I started braking. It immediately cut in front of me, cut right in front of one of the trucks, and the truck had nowhere else to go except in my lane. He went right into my lane. So had that not happened to me, that like spidey sense, I don't know what to call it, that said, hey, pay attention. And then paying attention, the awareness part, then realizing need to brake, see this car coming up really fast, need to brake, and realizing the truck has nowhere else to go but my lane. So I can't answer the how of the spidey sense. That one I don't understand. But I just wondered, yes, so that's how it saves my life several times, not on the mat. In terms of the on the mat stuff, I've trained with a lot of people who don't have awareness. And this is why other people would get hurt, etc. I've also seen both people working together that don't have awareness. And then they put themselves in positions that were not good, and they would execute the technique, pop, snap. You'd hear it, right? So maybe you'd hear like a bone got broken or came out of joint, something like that. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, it's not too bad. Aikido saved 2 lives on this session so far, so we're not doing too badly. Errol, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think that when it comes to Aikido is a good system for learning because it incorporates a philosophy and an action. You start off with an idea, and then the idea gets translated into a physical exercise. So one reinforces the other. But I think also a precursor before a person starts developing Aikido is the first, he has to realize he has an issue he wants to correct. A lot of people don't think they have a problem and they go into Aikido and it's non-transformative. Nothing happens to them. So I think if you come to Aikido and you say, I want to make a change in this, in that, then Aikido through its philosophy and through action and philosophy combination allows a person to be transformed. So you need awareness, and then you need to have an action combined with some sort of a philosophy. And then you get a transformative something happening.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in what you say, although I can think of a lot of students that have come with issues, and I think those issues maybe attracted them to what I was offering, but they didn't really know what it was that they were looking for. It just felt that this was something that they would like to try, and it became clearer over time what the issues were. And obviously with clarity, you can make more progress. But it's interesting how some people don't see the issues.
No, because it could be that it's just intuitive. Intuitively, I know something's missing, and that can be enough to start the journey.
Yeah.
But without that, you can do Aikido for umpteen years. And I've seen a lot of people who've done Aikido, and from my perspective, I haven't seen any change. Perhaps in their life it's made a change, but looking on, seeing them every day training, I'm thinking, they're exactly the same position that they were when they started umpteen years ago.
Yeah. So what you're saying. So you talked about the philosophy and the ideas, and that marries with the embodied practice. Let's explore some of those philosophy and ideas, because that's what I'm trying to pull out.
Okay, so a simple case in my experience is I was always very much up in my head, thinking things out too much. So for me, in being more intuitive and being more spontaneous was something that I'm after, and that's basically a chemi. If you look at a chemi, it gives you you have an idea, I want to be more spontaneous, you've got a philosophy of saying, I want to react on an intuitive level. Then you've got a chemi, which is basically, it's exactly that. You put into a situation, something's happening which you have absolutely no control over, and yet you have to react with control and at the same time without control, which is to me exactly what intuition is. So you've got an idea married with a system which is physical, and one reinforces the other, and then you can have a transformation.
Okay, that's great. I love that. So as you've said the word ukemi, does it develop any other skills? And that's open to everybody. I mean, I think ukemi is a fantastic part of the practice. You can learn so much from it.
I think ukemi is sort of the uniqueness of Aikido in many ways. And I always teach in my classes ukemi, good ukemi, as opposed to good nage, because I think the beauty of Aikido and what it's really got to offer is your ukemi and understanding that.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good way to go. But let's talk about, well, what does ukemi give us other than this ability to maybe just follow what you feel, i.e. developing your intuition as you described it? What else?
For me, it gives me adaptability, change to situation in the moment.
Right.
To me, that's really important, because if you have no sensitivity to that and you're walking, like I remember one time, this is actually funny to me. I remember when I was younger, one time, my mom had just cleaned the sliding glass door glass, and I didn't do it, and boom, I walked right into it, fell down. Right, so there's like no awareness, right? I had no ability to adjust and adapt to that moment, except fall, which was good ukemi, instead of keep going through it.
Sure.
Right, but yeah, so for me, the ability to adjust and adapt quickly, I think, is important.
Okay, yeah, I agree. What other skills does ukemi give us? I could feed you this, but I don't see why I should do all the hard work here. Go on, Linda.
Oh, to stop pushing into things that are resisting. Be
Yeah.
receptive.
Yeah, I would say that's,
and how to change a situation. There's, you know, the Kaishi idea of ukemi. Instead of like, by God, I'm going this way. Though, oh, there's resistance there. What if I find another way through it?
I would say both roles. That's a skill you can develop. But it's a really good point. Anything else? Sean, your finger's going up. Yeah, you need to unmute though. Yeah.
Yeah, my point goes back a little bit before the ukemi point. Actually, it builds off of what someone was saying about transformation, sort of to your idea of like the how. You know, we've talked about various areas, right, that are where we see development or improvement or, you know, positive change. But you kept asking this idea of how, and I sort of building off of something that Linda said in the chat. I think that using different words, the how comes down to like misogi, right? Like this is purification. So one of the previous speakers talked about transformation, right? And in Tsunado Mari Sensei's book, he recounts that O Sensei says that if your tamashi, if your spirit, or your feelings and intentions, as Tsunado Mari Sensei's translator likes to use it, but if your tamashi is bound in your body, then there will be no transformation, right? No rebirth. Or no transformation, right? And so, you know, we've described, you know, meditation and all these other things, and it seems to me that this all follows the general like 2-note structure of like chinkon, ki shin, right? Calm the spirit, return to kami, right? Your own inner essence, right? And that this improvement, this development, comes from the Kiyome no waza, right? The waza of purification, the functioning of purification, to take magakoto, the distortions or places in you that are bent, right? And through this misogi, right, restore them to being straight, so that you have naohi, right? As opposed to magahi, a distorted spirit, a bent, a twisted spirit. You then have naohi, right? The straight or direct spirit. And it's also naohi, which is, I mean, nao means both straight, direct, but also to restore, right? So it's that which restores us, right, back to that. And like, that's the how.
So my teacher would describe Aikido as a polishing process. And I think what that really translates as, you can't really polish unless you see the dirt. So you have to look within and see what needs a good polish and a clean out in order to progress. Otherwise, perhaps you're just smearing stuff to filth around. And I think that's kind of a more earthy translation of what you've just brought to the table. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know. I would not want to say that, of course, you know, one can, you know, undergo, you know, the sort of transformation or self-growth without ever doing any introspection, right? Like that sounds ridiculous, right? What's the 5 stages to Satori, right? Kairi, right? First is Kairi Miru, right? Then like Hajiru, right? Osoru, right? Kuiru and Satoru, right? I might have gotten a few of those.
I'm just impressed that you can use words like that.
Sorry, but no, it's the 5 stages to Satori, to awakening, and the first one is Kairi, so self-reflection, right? You have to literally return the gaze, look within, right?
Exactly.
And then the second stage is immediately and be horrified at what you see. Right?
You've got to be honest with yourself. I've got a theory in Aikido that kind of people come along and they practice Aikido, and they arrive on the mat at a certain level in life anyway. And they do it, and then they hit that point in life where actually, if they're going to make any more progress, they've got to look at themselves more honestly to make the progress they need. And that's often when people walk away. because they're not very good at looking at themselves. So yes, I think that's if we're talking about a developmental path, it's that honesty and reflection on your strengths and weaknesses and being prepared to do something about them that makes it a developmental path for me. Yeah, thank you for that. That's a great contribution. Anybody? Joe?
Yes, on Ukemi, I was thinking that, well, obviously related to what you just said, when we get on a kind of a plateau and then, oh, I'm done, I'm quitting right now. At least for me, Ukemi was about rolling. So, okay, you throw me, I roll, and then, okay, I come back. So it's faster for me to come back. If you throw me, I roll, and then I go back to you. But now, mostly after reading your article on Ukemi and also developing just like Ukemi through the screen and, you know, walking Ukemi, different Ukemis, talking Ukemi, it's much more than that. So I think sometimes could be easy for us just to stop. Okay, I'm rolling very good right now. I'm okay with that, and then I don't need to practice other types of rolling. But we have just like Nadeau says, it's down layers. We have finer and deeper layers over that. So it's kind it's just and also relating that to the rolling, it's when we get on the floor that we have the beat up to stand up again. So sometimes it's just developing the rolling and the Ukemi in different layers, different dimensions. And I don't know, that for me, it's part of the mysterious way of Aikido, that it's so exciting, so nurturing. I don't know.
No, brilliant. Thank you, Joe. I mean, that's certainly one thing to say, isn't it? That one of the things about Ukemi is it teaches us to get up. Well, I mean, all of us have probably had teachers that said, okay, I'm going to throw you, and I'm going to keep throwing you. And they don't, I mean, and you have to get up and keep going until they basically say stop, or until they think they've exhausted you. And yeah, that Aikido gives you that, doesn't it? And the other thing that I feel it very strongly that Aikido is all about, it's all about connection too. If you want to do good at Ukemi, you've got to connect to your partner and feel exactly what's going on, to be honest in your response and be helpful to them in their learning. You've got to be very sensitive, which is kind of where we started off. You develop sensitivity. Yeah. Any other comments from people on that? Vitaly. Vitaly, and then I come to you, Paul.
Yeah. Just I'm struggling with my connection over here with internet, so I'm just afraid that it's going to be lost when I'm trying to say something. There were really wonderful things said about even saving lives, but nobody said about changing your life, and because it really changes your life, and it makes you want to change somebody's life, because you accept somebody's energy, you put it through yourself, and you return it. So when you return it, it's a possibility for you to change somebody's life and to bring something good in their life and interact and feel, sense, and help.
I think I'll say it before Paul does. It doesn't do that to everybody, but I think if you're like you, that's what it did for you. It has that potential within to change you, and through changing you, to give that gift to others. Yeah, lovely. Paul?
I think it gives a fighting spirit. No matter what happens, you don't give up, you will keep fighting. The idea of an opponent, an enemy is very useful. You can love the guy, but you still have to keep fighting.
Yeah.
That's what.
Okay, that's a really, you've opened up a real good line of thought there. So, you know, the very essence of Aikido is that we're dealing with conflict. And most of us at first sight would say, well, conflict's not a good thing. Yeah, conflict makes, you know, it's how we develop, isn't it? Through conflict often. Big changes happen in the world because somebody stood up and said, that's not right. Errol?
I think talking about fighting spirit, I think Aikido highlights the difference between aggression and assertiveness, which I think a lot of martial arts become very aggressive and they think that is good, but Aikido sort of emphasizes on empowerment or assertiveness as opposed to aggressiveness. And it teaches you that in a situation, you can be forceful, but it's not aggression. And I think that's something unique to Aikido as far as martial arts go.
Yeah, very nice point. Rick, did
Yeah.
you say something?
Going back to the idea of fighting, and I think what a good uke or when you're receiving good ukemi, it changes you. It allows you to learn how to dance better, and everything is about the giving and the receiving of the energy, and so it becomes this continuous dance. But at least for me, I don't want to think that I'm in a continuous fight. So it's my perception of what this energy is when it's first coming to me. And so I'll tell my students all the time, I don't care about the attack, I care about the energy. So it's about my being able to flow with that energy and then redirect it to what it is that I want. Do I want to redirect it in a way that it continues the fight or the dance? What kind of conclusion do I want to bring to this? And so a lot has to do with where I am mentally when things start happening. And if I'm not in the right frame of mind, I will create or perpetuate or recreate that same energy that was given to me, instead of me starting to flow with it in a way that brings it to a peaceful resolution or a least destructive resolution. So I don't want to think about everything as an attack or as a fight. This person is doing something, I'm responding. It is about me being able to stay on my agenda and being able to always remember who I am inside of this. Because there's a hurricane that's going on and I'm in the center of it because I'm the calm in the storm. And so, I want to take this someplace that's not, that's not aggressive. I don't want to make it even more aggressive by my action.
You want a positive resolution at the end of it.
I want a positive resolution to it, but I guess I'm trying to connect what you were saying about what ukemi does for Nagi,
Sure.
or what should be happening.
Absolutely.
So
there has to be that intent behind the attack
intent
to allow you to transform something that looks very negative into something positive.
Into something positive. Exactly. Very good way of saying it.
That's an excellent definition of fighting spirit.
Excellent. Then we have unanimity there. That's good. So one of the things that springs to my mind as a word that's key in Aikido is acceptance. You have to learn to receive the attack and accept it in order to transform it. If you're trying to battle against it, that's when the war carries on going. And I think that's one of the things that we do practice that makes Aikido fairly unique, this acceptance and receiving of the attack and learning to transform it.
In some Okinawan styles of karate, they don't use the word block at all. They use the word uke. You receive the attack. You don't stop it, you yield to it, you go with it, then you hit the guy. But they have the very same ethical concept. It's not unique.
I don't mind it being unique, but it is unusual, I think.
That's true.
Hey, can I say something?
Patrick, feel free.
So I want to talk about, I'll try to keep it short. In my early years of Aikido, I was not aware of my darker side of nature in me. That being my aggressive nature, which Paul can speak to. He's seen it on occasion many times, actually. And with my first teacher, it would show up a lot, but my teacher didn't know how to handle it. So what happened, and I didn't see it. He'd just say, he'd tell me, fix yourself, fix it. But he wouldn't tell me what it was. And so what happened was I couldn't see it. And the students would, they just didn't really want to work with me. So I ended up leaving the dojo. We both just decided, instead of him just saying, hey, leave, we just say, okay, it's not working for me. I said, okay, not working for me either, and left. And then I went and found Paul. So Joanna asked in the chat, she said about, is it possible to have a place of Aikido where you could only have peace and beauty at some point, and not, my interpretation is not a darker side like what I'm talking about right now. For me, the beauty of Aikido in the transformative part of it is, if you have, especially if you have people who are working on it or have already worked on it and gone through it and can help you, is to see what's going on in you. Like, so Paul would see my aggression. We had another guy who was a police officer. He could see it too. But they were willing to work with me with my aggressive nature and point it out to me. And we'd work on it, like doing breathing exercises and so on. Now, this side in me has not been mastered. It still shows itself from time to time with interactions with other people. What has changed over a period of time of doing Aikido with awareness practice of doing it is I can adjust and catch it much quicker. So it doesn't get to the full point where it would get to the very, that would be turning to violence. Okay. So I think that was definitely, I think, one thing why O-Sensei did so much Misogi practice, was he recognized in all human beings you have this, you have yin-yo, right? Yin-yang, this good, bad, light, dark, right? And it's, you got to cleanse yourself of this dark side, especially at some point, and then learn how the whole thing gets balanced and comes together. And I'm by no means fully understand this or can eat at his level, especially, or even how to do it yet. But I keep coming back to these ideas when I see this pop up, my aggressive nature, or even the impulse. It's the person did something they weren't supposed to do and you didn't like it. Damn, I want to slam them back. Even that little impulse feeling, I'm sure people get once in a while. Right, that's to me where you need the misogi and the constant practice of recognizing it right when it's starting to happen. Oh, change it. I can do that. Breathe. Step back if I have to. Anyway, that's all I want to say.
Well, I think you just illustrated beautifully why it's a developmental path, because you never get to where you truly want to be. There's always work to be done, and that's true for every single person on this call, for want of a better expression. Talk about maybe one of the two things that made Paul's class different, that made you able to deal with this better than you did in your previous dojo. Okay, so first of all, Paul based through his work of dealing with trauma, people, and his being in movement and embody peaceful making and so on, he could recognize what was going on, what I was doing in my body. Okay, so he had the ability to see what was going on, recognize it, and then we could, he pulled me over to the side and say, hey, this is what I see, what's going on, you know. And I would tell him I would be, at that time I use words like I feel frustrated and stuff. He prefers verb processing, I do frustration, right? But at that time I didn't understand any of that. So his ability to recognize that, pull me to the side, and then my ability to think about it and say, okay, let's work on it, to be willing to work on it, right? That combination. And then I really owe a lot to, his name was John Kane. He was the police officer, Columbus Police Department, and he really could see it too. And he would help me too, right? He'd catch it just before it came up, and he pulled me over a little bit. Are you aware that you're starting to clench your fist and you clench your teeth? Those were signs to him. Aggression was starting to come. Right. And he'd pull me off just before, and then I might go and sit for like 5 minutes and do some breathing, and then I'd be fine. Right. Come back, bow in, and go. So yeah, I just think that all the years that Paul's done his, plus he went through a lot of his own stuff, right? So he had that also. So that's what helped me a lot. Sure. So this comes back to what Linda was saying about feelings. It's all an embodied process. And basically Paul's work is about putting a more positive body response in. So when you're doing sort of anger or you clench fist, you say, well, what does it feel like when you unclench your fist? That kind of thing. So you put a better pattern in, which makes you able to
so his process is exactly is identifying what and where in your body are you doing it. And then is there a better way that you can do that can open you up and change you? Because his whole point is violence. And when you're doing things, this is a constricted flow. It's constriction in the body. Right. And when you constrict, you're actually also, if you think about it, when your breathing gets shallow, you don't have the full amount of oxygen going through too, right? And then when you get triggered through the fight, flight, collapse response, freeze, etc.
Right. Yeah, perfect. Linda, did you want to add?
Yeah, just a comment on the word you just used, a more positive response. I would use more effective or maybe more appropriate. So like, for instance, rather than, calming down, for some people, for me, a lot of what I needed to learn is how to be more assertive. So I would like hang back. Oh my God, being able to just do Ikkyo and like, boom, you're going down. I'm not mad at you, but you're gonna go down and stay down for a minute. For me, that was like, but I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to be mean. It was very hard for me to do. But for me, I had to learn to be effective, not so it was, I was being too like quiet, happy, friendly, and positive. And what I needed to do was be grounded and
You're making a really, really good point. So what I meant by positive was actually what you just said, coming up with a better, more appropriate response that leads to better results. So I think it's really,
I figured you did, but I just wanted to comment on that.
No, word. It's really good that you've picked me up on that, because you can get, I'm going to generalize, but I guess it's not unusual to find that blokes come to the mat and they're aggressive. And you want to kind of calm them down. They're used to sort of holding their space and fighting for their corner. And ladies, it's the other way. They're thinking, oh no, it's okay. And I don't want to make a fuss about this. And they need to be more assertive. And of course, that's a huge generalization. It can be, mix the genders, the same problems can arise. But you need to find that balance where you know when to hold your space and when to say, hey, I made a boo-boo there, or when to.
I actually wrote down that idea of more yin and more yang, like
whatever's needed.
If I was living in this range, now I have this range. I can be both more soft and receptive and more firm and certain.
Beautiful.
I'm going to say something for once that might be a teensy bit controversial.
Oh, go for it, Paul.
I can demonstrate easily in an Aikido technique that if you're kind and respectful, your body is soft and free, and if you need to, you can hurt the person in that spirit or refrain from hurting them. So it's not a range, it's all exactly the same. Power and love are exactly the same.
I'm just going to sit and reflect on that.
Yeah, I think that everything that you're saying is about connection. It's about when you engage, what's the connection? And so whether you're firm, I like to think that as Christ says, it said that when you're at your weakest, you're also at your strongest, because that's where power resides. That's where God is, in those moments. And so being supple sometimes can be very, very empowering, because it allows you to flow to almost anywhere from that position. And so being in that state where you're calling it, I don't necessarily call it being assertive sometimes, but just being focused.
Well, I think if you, as an Aikido sensei, if you're a good Aikido sensei, that bandwidth has to be broad, so that you can be gentle when people need you to be gentle to coax them further forward, but also you can be righteously angry with somebody if that's what it takes to push them out along the path they need to go. And
It's just-
pulling the tool out of pulling the right tool out of the bag more often than not is what we try to develop as teachers, I think.
It's having a bag full so much inside of your things to do, and that's what I tell students. Actually, it's almost like I tell them, you do what's necessary for the situation, and if you've practiced a certain way, there's always something there for you to access, because it's inside of your repertoire of things to do. It's kind of like my having had a karate background. That's always back there for me to access anytime I want,
Sure.
given whatever situation. So, I don't throw anything out. I just put it in reserve, I put it to the side.
Absolutely. Judith, you've been very quiet tonight. Do you want to add something? Hand up if you do. Oh yeah, I think you're going to come to it. I can't hear you yet. You're muted, sadly. Yeah,
The way in which Aikido helps us to develop and save lives a few times, it's helped me save other people's lives. Being aware and knowing how to move, like grabbing somebody they stepped out into a road and grabbing somebody before they were about to fall down some stairs. And then there was one time when I grabbed a young lad when he was choking and did first aid on him. So I think it's pretty cool. So I think it's all to do with awareness and knowing how to use my body.
So that's 5 lives saved on this session so far. Anyone else got any life-saving stories, either personal or other people? Joe, come on, do share.
I'm bringing too much architecture, but again, related to that thing that I wrote about the perfect world and the peaceful thing. I don't know, at least here in Brazil, when you publish a house or designing or something, you just don't see life in there. It's just too much pretty to be on a magazine, And when you go to somebody's houses, there is their stuff over there. They have the pillows thrown over the couch. They have the kitchen with dishes to wash. You have life over there. And I think, okay, we can have just an easy practice one day, which everybody have fun, but we can also have our history, our daily history on the mat to work on that. So I think it's okay. It's good to have an easy practice one day, but it is perfectly fine to use our art to develop this other this conflict situation, just like our life that we bring from years of experience outside of the mat. And it's kind of both, but I think as much as we bring our background, the much richer is the practice.
Yeah, can't do anything else but bring your life experience to the mat, really.
Yeah, I think that when we're talking about, as Joanna said, an easy practice or workout, it is about what each participant is coming to learn. It's about where their head is when they get on the mat, because some people just come on the mat for camaraderie and they're going to just do it, and it's not so much deep into a practice. And so sometimes you end up directing uke and how to attack you, what type of energy to give. And sometimes you tell Nagi, I want to practice being able to be this, so that they now learn how to blend with that type of receiving that type of energy. It's, for me, Aikido is always about working together to accomplish a goal, but it has to be the goal of both parties. And so if it ever gets to that point where you're both at, you're so smooth in your dance, it just means that now you're going to be elevated to another level of practice. And so you're always looking to evolve. And it's and I tell my students all the time that that Aikido is not static; it's living. It's continuous motion. It's continuous fluidity. You're always trying to be fluid, and so you never know exactly what somebody's going to do. They make mistakes in their attack. You respond to that mistake. It's supposed to be punching with your right fist, but they step out and they punch with their left fist. What do? So does it just, oh, no, stop. You have to punch me with that fist. No, you know?
Yeah,
And
no,
so,
absolutely.
and so I tell students, I say, you cannot stop and tell the person that's attacking you on the street, only attack me from this side, you know? So you have to be able to respond, and that's calm and being aware of being calm in the midst of that chaos, you know, but it's not so much your chaos, it's their chaos. So you have to be calm in their chaos. And so, but anyway.
No, really good point. But what came to my mind is actually, we're kind of forced to evolve, all of us, because every day we get a bit older.
Yes,
And
yeah.
our capabilities and the qualities we bring change. So we have to evolve in our Aikido journey, because I'm not the athletic young man I once was, but you know, in other ways I'm much more powerful than I used to be. So you know, it's kind of forced on us. If we stay on the mat, we have to evolve.
And that's why we say it's a living art. And because every day you're different. So today I feel energetic. Tomorrow I'm, you know, I had a long night, but I'm still going to push myself in practice. So now I have to be able to flow with that energy, you know. So yeah, and that's exactly it. You know, not just age. There are certain parts of your life where you weigh more than you did before, and so you know, I have students, and you know, some of my the female students have said, "Sensei, go easy on me. I'm having cramps today." And I said, "Really?" You know, I said, "You really want me to go easy because you're having cramps?" And they said, "Why did I even tell you?" And it's because they know that I'm not going to go easy on them, because I want them to now be able to, if she walked out that door and somebody, you cannot stop this guy and say, "Hey, wait a minute, I'm having cramps today." You know, you've got to be able to do what you have to do.
Hard task, master. Hard master. Okay. Do you know what? As far as I'm concerned, we've barely even started discussing the subject of how Aikido can help you develop self. But I do think we've come to probably a useful point in the evening where we should perhaps call it a day. So any final comments before we close off for tonight?
Well, I do have one. This is my first time being with you since your interview. And I just want to tell you thank you, you know, for that opportunity. Thank you for the words that were said to me. The response that I've gotten so far has been extremely positive. And I just want to thank everybody for giving me this moment, you know, to even talk about what Pathway to Harmony is, and just being able to share. And even in this forum right now, in your Burwell forum, just being able to hear, you know, people put things together, the connection. And each time I've sat down with you guys, I've taken something with me, you know, that I can now, you know, share. And I will use your names in some cases when I'm teaching, because I want people to know, I want my students to know whose essence or where they're getting, you know, that spirit from, you know, so that they can be able to quote your name, you know.
We're delighted you found us and we found you. But one of the beauties for me of this session is that everybody brings a richness and adds to the tapestry, and that's been the joy of this year. But thank you for voicing it. John, did you want to say something?
Yes, just a very short sentence. Aikido is a wonderful exchange of energy.
That's very true. Anybody else? Okay, well then, as I said, I think it's been very rich. We could have gone on for another 1.5 hours for sure, and we may do so in the future. So I'll get you to watch this before we start that one, so you know what we covered and what we didn't. But thank you so much. You're wonderful as always.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
See you next week.
Thanks.
Later.
Bye.
Thank you, Quentin. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you all so much.